Welcome back to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. Today we are talking about local politics, civic engagement, and how to get involved and make like that real impact in our city, Salt Lake City. And joining us today are Giana and Carla, co-founders of Salt City Strategies. So with years of experience running local and federal campaigns, they know what it takes to turn political passion into actual action. Whether you're looking to support a candidate, attend your first city council meeting, or better understand how local decisions actually affect your daily life, this episode is for you. So let's get into it. Ladies, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, appreciate you. Okay, can you both introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your backgrounds? Like, what about your background in politics and civic engagement?
So I will go first. So my name is Carla. I moved here from Florida back in 2017. Kind of what brought me into politics here is my dad ran for office back in 2010, starting with House District 53.
Yes, he's been interviewed multiple times on the station. Yeah.
So my background kind of, I don't want to say groomed me for this, but prepared me for this in this sense. So I have a background in public communication with an emphasis in writing and rhetoric. I also have a background in history and a background in English. I have ADHD, so I like to
she likes
study
to do
all the things.
Hey, you're in good company here. You're definitely in good company. I think we all have a little bit of that, right? Okay, Giana.
Yes. Hi, Giana Petrichella. I have been here for a little over 10 years now, and I began my political journey alongside Carla. I worked on her dad's congressional campaign these last 2 years for Congressional District 3. Prior to that, though, I am a California native. My background is in business, in legal studies, law, and I am currently enrolled with Cornell's policy advocacy program. So I'm kind of coming off of the structural piece of politics and very excited to speak on it today with you.
Well, I'm so excited to chat with you. Giana and I are very good friends, very good friends for years and years. And then I met Carla through Giana. So I was so excited to talk with you both today. Okay, what inspired you to launch Salt City Strategies, and what kind of work do you do? Let's just start there.
Yeah, well, I'll take a stab at it. Combined, Carla and I have over 40 years of experience in corporate marketing. Yeah, don't remind me.
You must have started when you were 5, right?
Getting old, yeah. Corporate marketing, legal. We both have legal experience. Carla took the LSAT and was going to go to law school. I was an undergrad pre-law. And so we have quite a bit of experience that sort of intersects within the civic engagement and political world, whether at the municipal local level, all the way up to the federal level. And so that's why we're here today, is just to kind of explain and define what all these things are. It's very overwhelming for a lot of people. You're not alone if you feel that way. And so it's really important to define it and sort of categorize everything so we know how to tackle it.
Sure. I bet so many people, especially right now, are feeling overwhelmed with, definitions of things. There's a lot. Okay. So for someone who wants to make a difference, like they want to make a big difference in Salt Lake City, but they don't know where to start, what's the best first step, would you say?
I think my advice would be, as a first step, is to figure out what you're most passionate about. And when I say that, I mean, what affects you in your daily life specifically. So it could be somebody that's at home that's taking care of an elderly parent. Mm-hmm. Maybe those are some issues that you want to look at. Maybe you are just graduating from college and you're looking to start your life, career, get married, have a house. So those are issues that you may be wanting to take a look at, because there are so many issues that affect all of us every single day.
It's hard to do it all, right?
Yes, it becomes overwhelming very quickly. So it's kind of one of those where focus on one or two things max. We all can't save the world by spreading ourselves too thin. So I think it's important for people to just kind of focus on one or two things that really affect their daily lives, to start looking at of ways they can get involved.
I like that. Try to pay attention to what, and figure out what's important to you.
Yeah, and I'll just piggyback off that really quickly. We have a motto and a saying between the two of us. Carla and I have been friends for a very long time, but it's start small. Just start somewhere, start small. And like she said, pick an area, because we can't do all the things all of the time.
Can you imagine if we all just did that and just started small? Like if every single one of us, the difference and the impact that we could make. That's really good advice. What are some common misconceptions about getting involved in politics at the local level?
Well, so I want to take a step back for just a second and sort of define what it means to be political. I think a lot of us have, there's a stigma around being political, and I'm using air quotes for those that can't see. And we're seeing that, on social media from youth and beyond, quite frankly. Everyone sort of has that stance of not being sure where they fit into the political arena. And I just want to say politics, by definition, relates to government and public affairs.
Okay.
That's it. That's all it is. And so I think once we define it and understand it, we can feel better about being it or being political. From the local level, like Carla said, it's starting small. So if you're a parent, start with your school board, get to know them really well, attend the meetings if you can. A lot of them are being held virtually now, so it's way more accessible to everyone. You can volunteer with your favorite nonprofit. I've been volunteering with Food Justice Coalition since their inception back in, I think, 2020, so it's been a little over 5 years. And it's taken 5 years, but over that time, I've gotten to know the other volunteers that I've stayed in contact with. And these are people from all walks of life coming to volunteer. You have people from the corporate space, from the legislator, from being a homemaker and a parent, and that's their profession. So I would say there are options out there at the local level, and it can be nonprofit world, it can be your voting, it can be attending a meeting board, legislative board if you can, and following your representatives on social media, I would say, is the very biggest thing that anyone, if you can take anything from this conversation, it's figuring out who your representatives are.
Okay, we follow everybody else on social media. Might as well follow our representatives, right? Yeah. Are there any common misconceptions when, we're thinking of getting involved that you want to clear up or you could help people with?
Yeah, I think I can speak from experience because I feel like when I first started with my dad in politics, it felt like politicians were kind of in this other world. Like they're inaccessible. We can't talk with them. We can't reach them. The only way is to call, email, fax them, scream from the rooftop type of thing.
They're not all in Washington.
Yeah, they're not all in Washington.
True.
They're amongst us.
They are
They're
amongst
in our community.
us.
Yeah.
So I think it was interesting when I showed up to my first actual convention and just started mingling around with people and talking, and they're right there. They're your neighbors. They're in our community and they want to help. So I think that's a really common misconception, is that politics or politicians, these people are just so far removed or they're just unattainable, and they're really right here. They're showing up in person. So if you just find a community event, nonprofit, or anything like that, I feel like you can just go up to and talk to them, shake their hands, introduce yourself. They're more than willing to talk with people, and they want to.
I have a perfect example, a recent example of this. I attended the State of the County address with our mayor here in Salt Lake County, and every mayor in the county showed up.
Wow.
Every other representative in the county showed up. Your treasurer, we have our city mayor, the Salt Lake City mayor, the county mayor, everyone. So I was able to see them, engage with them. There's conversations happening all around you that can percolate other conversations and topics. And so they are accessible and available to us, and that was through following them on Instagram. Our government pages on Instagram, on social media, what have you. So I highly recommend doing that.
A lot more accessible now these days.
Yeah.
Okay, we talked a little bit about local. So a lot of people focus on national politics, but why is local government just as important in our daily lives if we go back to local?
So Giana and I were just having this discussion yesterday, and the way I view it is, national laws affect us on a generational level. Local laws affect us in our daily lives, just as you said. So local laws are one of those things that really have the most impact on you. I know there's a very common misconception that people think federal and national laws are the ones that we need to be paying attention to first and foremost, which you're not wrong, but those take years to implement and actually see how they impact you. Whereas in daily laws, just as an example, Giana and I were talking about the trash bin schedule changing here in Salt Lake. And they gave, I think, less than a month's notice.
It was about less than a month's notice, and they gave some really pretty colored charts, and they were saying, like, hey, if you're Wednesday, you're now going to be Friday for pickups. That's my schedule.
Okay.
And so that's a really good example of some local
that do affect us.
That do affect
and
us.
it's
every
immediate.
week.
It's immediate.
Yeah.
You see that change immediately. So that's where I think local politics and laws are something that people do need to pay attention to first and foremost, and then national.
Okay. Can you give us another example or policy or local decision that has had a big impact on Salt Lake City residents? Is there another one that you can think of?
So I'm going to go ahead and say gerrymandering, simply because Salt Lake County as a whole is split into 4 different parts, and it causes a lot of confusion for the constituents, for people within the community, of who the representative is. So gerrymandering in that aspect is just something that needs a little bit more transparency in who we can contact to actually discuss these issues with. Because if we're all living within just one county, but we have 4 different representatives, our representative may take different actions versus another representative on how to deal with certain issues that we're all experiencing.
Or your neighbor across the street from you could have a completely different congressional representative than
Just
you.
across the street.
Just across the street.
Yeah.
Actually, in my neighborhood, I actually technically border Mill Creek, but my neighbors don't, and they are Mill Creek, even though they're right across the street from me.
Interesting.
And Mill Creek has, I believe, 7 different city council people. And so the house across from me has a different representative than me, then my neighbor to the south of me, then my neighbor to the north of me.
Wow. Your literal neighbors.
I am quite literally in the intersection of gerrymandering personally. So I concur what Carla says. She's also speaking on, when she says representatives, I think it's worth noting that that's at the federal level. So here in Utah State, we're broken up into 4 congressional representatives that go to Washington to represent us. And then, of course, we have 2 U.S. senators that join them in Washington as well. So the congressional districts, which is the campaign we worked on last, that is what she's referring to.
Okay. Makes sense. All right, staying local. What are some of the biggest issues currently shaping Salt Lake City and Utah politics?
So the first one I would say is Great Salt Lake. I feel like we may be screaming this one from the rooftops as well. But specifically the Great Salt Lake, it impacts everybody, because if we do not prioritize water to go into the Great Salt Lake, we are facing consequences where the lake dries up. It affects our tourism.
It's our air quality, right?
And it's our air quality. And that dust that's in the Great Salt Lake contains stuff like
Arsenic,
thank you. I was going to say arsenic.
Not great to breathe. Not
great to breathe.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of different chemicals in there that my dad would be far better at repeating that to you. But there's a lot of stuff in there that we do not want to breathe that would contribute to asthma spikes within the community, breathing issues. So the air quality is definitely one thing that affects all of us. I would say another issue is affordable housing. Specifically, I think it's a good thing to remind people that there was a supply chain issue not that long ago. Yeah. Thank you. And it affects how our developers can build the housing because they need the material.
Yeah.
It affects zoning and where we can build. I think a lot of talk right now is people are saying Salt Lake is filling up, so they're looking at other areas to build, and there's other things to consider in there. Like if we build maybe closer to the mountain, is the house going to slide down? Is it on solid ground? So there's a lot of zoning issues. There's developer issues, and there's material issues that all affect affordable housing here. So I think those 2 are the main ones that I would personally say are local issues affecting us.
Yeah. The secret's out. Salt Lake is a great place to live.
Yeah, it is.
People like it.
And from our research, we're going to expect anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million in the next 10 to 15 years. So
dang,
these are real things.
These are real things. We talked a little bit about this, but you both have experience running campaigns. What does a successful local campaign look like?
I'm going to take this one for a second. Successful, we don't define successful in necessarily traditional ways. I think successful is, as our favorite motto during our congressional campaign, is just moving the needle. Just making, again, tackle small things at a time. So just trying to move the needle ever so slightly. Of course, we want big wins and we want this big influx of results. That doesn't always happen, especially in politics. And so you have to take all the wins no matter their size. So I will start there in saying that that's how we define success. And it's also a responsibility of engaging with the public. We spent a lot of time, of course, advocating for our candidate and focusing on him, but the other responsibility is making sure that we have the next generation involved, because that's just as much as our responsibility as it is representing our candidate and what he's about, should he be or they or she be your representative. So we take community engagement and community organizing and grassroots efforts really seriously, and that is a huge element to campaign success.
Yeah, and ultimately the people, you know.
Yep.
What are some effective ways for everyday people to support a candidate, like on the other side, or like cause they believe in?
We talked about some of it here. I think, showing up to legislative session, we're at the tail end of our statewide legislative session, but making sure you attend the public events that are made for the public. A lot of the times we don't have a balanced attendance of people that show up. We need to hear from folks that are parents. We need to hear from folks that maybe want to start a family. We need to hear from folks that are maybe more senior in age.
Everyone.
So the spectrum of public comment and input is really important. And ultimately, these representatives, and I say representatives in a more broad statement, not just federally, they represent us. So they have to work for us and with us, and that means showing up. So your biggest takeaways are following them on social media, attending public events when you can. A lot of them are virtual now, and then staying engaged with the public through nonprofit work or what have you in that regard.
Okay. Where do we find information on these events and things? Like, where would one go, I'm going to follow and find out where this is happening, but where do you even start?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because hopefully you have a pen and paper around for listeners, but go to us.gov to start.
us.gov. That's where you're going to start.
.gov.
Okay.
Make sure you know who your representatives are. That website will tell you who your representatives are from the federal level all the way down to county, state level.
So that's a great place to start.
That's a great place to start. Once you figure out who they are, follow them on your social media platforms, whichever ones you prefer, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Then it will require you to go to your city or county level website,
or
whichever
local.
You live, whatever local place you live, and finding who your county and city representatives are. Unfortunately, those are two separate steps, and I think that's what gets people a bit frustrated, is that everything's not housed in one place, and that is the reality. Unfortunately, it takes a little bit of effort to find this information, but once you do, you know it for life. Follow them on social, stay engaged with them. I follow my representatives on social media. I have emailed my representatives and they respond back. We have really productive dialogue. I've called my representatives at the federal and state and city level. I follow them on Instagram and will leave comments all the time letting them know how I feel on certain things, or, hey, I emailed you that one time and that stuck with me, and thank you so much for engaging with me as your constituent. So I would definitely start there, us.gov, and then le.utah.gov.
le.utah.gov.
LE stands for legislators, legislative. That's where you're going to find your statewide representatives.
Okay.
And bill tracking, which is really important.
I think that's so good to know, too, because I think some people in their minds might wonder, well, if I'm sending emails and I'm sending messages, am I even going to hear back? Or is it going to make a difference? Is it just going to go into a spam folder? Or, but from your experience, you hear back, you get replies, you get communication, which is what we ultimately want.
Yep.
So that's good to know. That's good to know. Okay. How can younger or first-time voters feel more confident in understanding ballots and local issues? They're just starting out.
So I'll take this one. I think this actually goes back to a previous question that you asked which is basically focusing on issues that are important to you. So for the younger people, we've had a couple interns now for our campaign, and I always ask them, what do you want to learn? What do you want to get out of this? Because it doesn't help me to just throw work at you, and that's not what you wanted to learn. That's not what you wanted to do or focus on. So for any of the younger voters, I would recommend figuring out what's important to you. And that could be something really small, like I want to save cats and dogs. That's honestly where I started. I'm just a pet lover.
I love animals too.
I love animals.
I want to save them all. I'm with you. I love them.
So I started at the Humane Society in Florida. So it was Humane Society of Broward County, was where I volunteered a lot of my time during high school. And that's kind of where I started getting more engaged in community and realizing like, okay, this actually does have an impact. You know, we can't save everybody, but it's one of those where at least I felt good about a cause that mattered to me. And from there, I was able to kind of step off of there and build the foundational elements of getting more engaged.
And then for me, it was with food insecurity and food access. With the Food Justice Coalition that I had volunteered with for so many years, the intersection of that work and then the legislator is super powerful. So there are chances that you will get to see how both of those converge. Sometimes it feels like they're very siloed and segmented things, but just recently we had a legislator here in Utah that passed a bill regarding student lunches and accessing food in our schools. And that founder of Food Justice was part of the legislative process and the policy making. And so you can see where they intersect, and it
Very
tells
involved.
that full story of like, okay, this is how we go from volunteering to an organization to legislative session.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I was going to ask my next question was, if someone listening wants to take action today, I think we've kind of covered that with one thing is just figure out what's important to you. You know, and Carla, like you said, Humane Society or, you know, whichever, you know, animals, you wanted to help animals. So I think that's so important to know that, like, if it's overwhelming and you can't save everybody and do everything, just start small. Start small to make that difference. So how can people stay informed about local politics without getting overwhelmed, which is a difficult task sometimes, right?
Yes. So my advice would be to find an influencer, somebody that speaks your language, that is presenting easily digestible information to you.
Yeah.
Me personally, I find people that are covering our current sessions or any of the bills that are being proposed where they are in the legislature tracker, and if they have passed or if they have not, who voted on it. Again, this is a lot of work in terms of being engaged
in the process.
Sure.
It's a lot
involved.
of work.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. Even if you don't understand it, that's okay. A lot of people actually do not understand politics. You know, even our representatives are not subject matter experts in these areas.
Yeah.
They have people to help them. They have lawyers. They have lobbyists. Did
you know that they have their own lawyers on every bill that they propose? So when they write it and draft it, they have attorneys.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
You can
even
look that up.
they are not experts even.
Yeah, they're not experts. They need the assistance, right, when
Yeah.
they draft something. I'm in my policy advocacy course with Cornell, and part of my legislative advocacy class was drafting a bill and then delivering the testimony to a pretend legislator. It was really just to my professor, and I recorded it. But it got me in the practice of doing it, and there's also value there in that post-secondary education and getting yourself integrated into the education of what policy making is. But there's a whole team behind bills.
Okay, before we wrap up, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to add in or that you want people to know? Anything
I would
else?
say that if you're feeling overwhelmed, like Carla said, find people that resonate with you. And we certainly would like to be viewed as advocates in the community. We are residents of Salt Lake County. I'm a homeowner in Salt Lake County. I'm also a parent myself. And so if I resonate with you or Carla resonates with you, we certainly can be advocates, and no question is too big or small. Find us at saltcitystrategies.com. You can email our email there under our contact page, and we're happy to guide you.
So good. I love this conversation. Thank you so much. I think, really what comes across is that you can make a difference. We're all thinking we're just so overwhelmed and we don't know where to start. Start small, figure out what's important to you. And and help your community by making that small difference one step at a time. So maybe if you're driving, listening to this, and you're not driving now and you want to write down some websites, Giana, let's go back to the ones that you gave us a couple questions ago. And so get a pen and paper so you can write them down now.
Okay, so we have usa.gov. That is where you're going to find your federal level and some of your state level representatives down to the county. So that includes your U.S. senators in Washington, D.C. That includes your congressional district representative in Washington, D.C. And then that includes all your state county-wide representatives. Then if you want to note who your city and county level representatives are, you go to your city and county website, wherever you live. And they will have a section where you can enter your address, your home address, your residential address, and it will spit out exactly the list of who represents you. The other website to consider is le.utah.gov, and that stands for our legislative branch here in Utah. So that's where our state level representatives are going to live. You can bill track there, you make an account, you sign up, you can follow any bill, can be outside of your representative, any bill that matters to you. There are several different topics out there like education and infrastructure and what have you. So follow your bills there and then follow your representatives and what bills they are proposing as well.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. Thank you. And before we go, we're going to play a quick little game. Is that okay with you?
Yes, sounds good.
We'd like to do Fresh 5, quick questions. They don't know what these questions are, so I'm just going to throw them at you. You ready?
Yes.
No. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. What is the scariest? Clowns, spiders, or heights?
Clowns.
Heights.
Heights and clowns. Okay, perfect. What are you having for brunch?
Quiche.
Oh, I love quiche.
She does love quiche. I'm laughing because she always.
I already know where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know where you're going too, and I love the quiche there.
Are you sure you didn't tell her these questions? Because she answered that way too fast.
That was quick.
I'm doing anything Mexican inspired. So I want like chilaquiles. I want.
Love it.
Yeah, chile verde with eggs, anything in that world.
Oh, that sounds good. I like both of those. Okay. Travel all the time or stay close to home?
Both. I'm going to say both. I know that's not an option.
That's
but I'm
okay.
gonna break the rules.
That's okay.
I'm going to say home.
Home. Okay. I love it. 2 more. Do you take your coffee black or a little creamer?
Ooh, I take it black. No
Cream.
room.
Cream. Okay. Night owl or early bird?
Night owl.
Early bird.
We got the
We
opposite.
couldn't be more opposite.
Oh my goodness, this is so fun. Okay, Carla, Giana, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Yes, thank you for having us.
On Fresh Off the Set. We really appreciate it. And thank you at home for listening to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Congrats, you made it to the end. If you want to continue to freshen up your day, you can watch us on Fresh Living every weekday on CBS Channel 2 in Utah at 1 o'clock. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, KUTV Fresh Living, and follow us on social media. We will see you next week.